Welcome back to Vuex Fundamentals. In this lesson, we're going to look at state and how it serves as a storage place for our data that we want to use globally across our application. If you're coding along, you can head into the lesson resources on this page and grab the repo and git checkout L2-start. You'll want to run npm install to grab the dependencies for this project. Once that's done, you should notice that the starting code for this lesson looks very familiar to where we ended up at the end of the Real World Vue 3 course. Again, we're taking that app and adding Vuex to it. However, you'll notice that there's a new component here, event create.vue. And if we head into the router, we'll see that new component has been added as a route. So what exactly is the purpose of this new component? Well, like the name suggests, it is a component that allows us to create events. So it includes a form where our users can create new events for our Events for Good app. By the way, whenever I say events in this app, I'm talking about events that you can attend, not JavaScript events. Before walking through the code in this new component, we're going to check it out in the browser. So we're going to want to run npm run serve in our terminal. Let's take a look at it in the browser. You'll see we have this Create Event tab in our navigation bar. And here is our event create component. Now let's take a look at how it's constructed. Looking at the template, you can see we have a number of labeled inputs that are bound with vModel to the different properties on the event that lives within our component's data. If constructing forms and using vModel is new to you, you'll want to check out the lesson on forms and vModel in our Intro to Vue 3 course. You'll see up here on the form element, we're preventing the default behavior of this form and instead triggering the onSubmit method whenever this form is submitted, or in other words, whenever our button is clicked. Taking a look at that onSubmit method, you'll see that we're just console logging the event from our data for now. So let's check this out in the browser. We'll add some dummy data just to see what happens. For our needs in this course, we're just going to type in the date and time like so. But for a more production level solution, you might want to find a date picker and time picker library that works for your needs, or build one from scratch. I chose a simpler route for this course so we could focus on Vuex. And when we hit submit, we'll see that the event was indeed logged to our console. If we take a closer look at the event that was logged, we'll notice that there are a couple blank fields, ID and organizer. As for the ID, we're going to solve that later on in the lesson. Right now, we're going to focus on the organizer field. We want this organizer field to be filled in with whatever user created the event. This means we need to add some state to our app. So we'll add a new user field to our state and then set the field of the organizer equal to that state. So let's head into our Vuex store folder, open up index.js, and add a new user property to our state. I'll just add my name as a simple string. So now that we have that user state, we can access it within our event create component and add it to our organizer field. Technically, we could head directly into the field and access that state by saying this.$store.state.user. However, this is not the recommended approach. You're going to want to avoid putting your state directly in your data because this could cause reactivity issues. Instead, a cleaner and safer way to do this would be to set our organizer field equal to the state whenever we submit the form. In other words, we're only accessing our state exactly when we need it. So we're avoiding setting our data with it and then that state somehow changing, and then we have stale data that we're accidentally submitting. Now let's check this out in the browser. We'll create a fake event. And if we examine the event that was logged to the console, we'll notice that our Vuex state is now showing up within the organizer field. Awesome. So now we've successfully added some state to our Vuex store and accessed that state from the component that needed it. Now we're ready to handle that missing ID field. We're going to use the UUID library to set our ID field. If you're using our starting code, you should see in the package.json that we already have that UUID library installed as a dependency. So now we just need to import that library into the event create component. Because we're going to use the v4 method, we'll import it as UUID v4. And now, down in the onSubmit method, we'll say this.event.id equals UUID v4. And this method will create a complex, unique ID that our event can use. So now if we head back into the browser and create an event, we should see that all of our fields are filled out, including the ID field with this unique UUID that our libraries method created for us. Now that we're successfully creating these events, obviously we want to do something other than log them to the console. We actually want to submit them to our fake database and also add them to our Vuex state. We're going to get all that to work in the next lesson, but as we wrap up, I want to show you what we're using for our fake backend. If you took the Real World Vue 3 course, you'll remember that we used the web version of the MyJSON server library. That allowed us to have a deployable version of our backend fake mock database. But as I mentioned in that course, there are limitations to that web version. One of those limitations is in regards to posting new events to the mock database. Notice it says changes are faked and aren't persisted. If we were to use the web version of MyJSON server and posted an event to that mock database, it wouldn't actually save. So for this course, because we do need those events to save on our database, we're going to switch to the locally running version of JSON server. These events that we create and post to the database are actually going to be saved in the db.json. So if you don't already have the JSON server library globally installed on your computer, you're going to want to do so now by running npm install-g json-server. If that doesn't install properly, you're going to want to add sudo before that command. If you're coding along and ran the npm run serve command to get this app running live, you might have noticed this output in the terminal. This is showing us that our JSON server is up and running. And it's running because I added onto the serve command in our package JSON. Notice how when we run the serve command, we're not only serving the app, but we're spinning up our JSON server and telling it to watch our db.json, which allows us to do things like take those events that we created and post them to our mock database. And that's exactly what we're going to get to work in our next lesson. I'll see you there.